Ayodeji.
Hi, I'm Kachi.
And welcome to The Square, a podcast where we have honest conversations about life, pop culture, and everything in between with casual conversations from a global perspective.
That's right. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, and share. And make sure you let people know how awesome it is.
All right, let's get into the episode. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us on The Square Pod. We're back again for another wonderful episode. You guys, hectic week, hectic days. Kachi is super busy. She's working, burning the midnight oil and all that. But don't worry, I'm here, right? And I have one of my excellent friends, one of my good friends. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not, check it out on YouTube. Have a look. I'm one of my excellent friends. His name is Kiiti. And I'm just going to have a chat about a bunch of different things. Kiiti is a lawyer, right, amongst many other things. But we'll just start with lawyer. He's a very, very professional person, Come and see him up and doing top G. Ladies, if you like what you see, do enter his DM. If you need me to help you, message me. I can help you.
I have hours, though. I have
You have hours.
Yes.
Okay, sure, no problem. We're trying to sell market. Let's just sort of get right into it this episode. So first thing we're gonna hit is the central square. Okay, you guys, so we're back for the central square. So we just have two interesting stories. So the first one is from So long story short, on the 13th of July 2025, former president and also military head of state Muhammadu Buhari passed away. He has been battling an illness, right? R.I.P. Buhari. He died at the age of, I think, 82. Very, very sad, mixed reactions. There's been here, and obviously, he's a Muslim, so I think he was buried quite quickly. So I think that's sort of part of how that sort of goes. A lot of mixed reactions. Obviously, those that are within the political architecture of Nigeria have been very complimentary. They've been speaking about how he was selfless, how he was a statesman, and how, he was very honorable and he wouldn't partake in corruption. I think when he was campaigning in 2015, one of the things that, the older generation, the millennials told us was that, yes, war against indiscipline. Buhari was a very, very present person in terms of making sure Nigeria ran in a very, very orderly and functional way. And that was also the rhetoric that went around when he was in office as head of state and also when he came back in 2015. And that was sort of what he sort of rode on to become president in 2015. Aside from the political architecture, social media hasn't been so kind. A lot of people have been getting into, Kiiti is here nodding. Yeah, social media haven't been very kind to Buhari's passing. There's a lot of conversation around things like, how economically at least, and, you can point to a bunch of different reasons why Nigeria went through perhaps a worse period while he was in office. You could point to the issues that he had within his own party and, and how just sort of Nigerians as a whole went through a very, very difficult 8 years when he was at the helm. I don't know, Kiiti, what do you think? What is your own impression of how, Buhari should be remembered? What is your understanding of his legacy since you lived through those Buhari times?
Definitely. So, I love Twitter. I think Twitter is such a big X now. I think it's such a fantastic app because you really get a balanced feel of like opinions across the board.
Balance is crazy, but sure, go on.
It depends on how you look at Isha. Because one, we saw like Abba Kyari's daughter online. I believe she's Abba Kyari's daughter, who came in defense of Buhari, as well as some other Buhari supporters that led their arguments in the sense that he did a lot. I know something that I didn't have that opinion before is that because some people didn't find Buhari's regime favorable, some people did. And I actually experienced this when I was in the FCT back in 2023, just after Tinubu came in. And basically the gist about it was that this Uber driver was telling me how he was actually in Ukraine for medicine and his passport got stolen. He got robbed and his passport got stolen.
Wow.
So he had to return to Nigeria under like some kind of way to try and get his papers sorted out so he could go back. And on return, he just couldn't get his papers and he had a family that he needed to support. So he became an Uber boat driver. And he was saying that under Buhari's regime, they actually brought out this fishing scheme where they gave members of the public a grant to start fishing and selling fish and things like that. And he was like, between the boat and the fishing scheme that Buhari's government had brought out, that was probably the most money he had made in his life. And it
Wow.
had turned him into probably one of the most successful members of his family just solely off the fishing and the boat he was doing. Obviously, some people might say, I mean, boat and fishing, how much money is that really? Is that really money? But again, that's also relative to you and your background, your social class, and things like that. But if that was monumental to him, he could send his child to school, he could support his wife and his other external family members. To him, that was revolutionary because he didn't have or he wasn't able to access those kind of opportunities under any other president prior. So when he actually said that, I had to look at it from a different POV because in my own experience, all I could recall from Buhari's government was the crash of the Nigerian naira against foreign currency. I remember when I moved abroad for further education, and I just remember the change in dynamics in the sense that in over the span of a month, the exchange rate had doubled while I was in the UK for school. And that just means that your wealth has kind of halved, effectively so, because what you were changing before now is double the price. So how am I supposed to come up with double the money in such a short amount of time? And that was really like a profound experience for myself and my family because I remember a lot of friends who parents couldn't continue with that financial cost and had to reorganize their finances if it meant sending their children to cheaper schools, bringing
In
them back to
Nigeria.
Nigeria to school and things like that. Or you could also see the ones that were able to remain, they may still have been going to top end schools, but in terms of their fashion, their social experience, and just other things that we considered mundane, like
Some
can you
people
buy a
stop coming back.
phone?
Some people stop coming back to Lagos.
Yeah,
For you, people would come back December, summer, so because people just weren't doing that anymore.
exactly.
People would just
And
stay
then the
for the
whole
whole thing.
Exactly. And people that never returned, and that was solely the reason because they couldn't afford the flight tickets anymore. Or
Yeah.
I had some friends that had to ostracize themselves from their friend group because there was a regression in their wealth and they just couldn't keep up with the activities. Like you want to go to I don't know, a restaurant and you're thinking the bill is already going to be like some £40. And you're asking yourself, if I take £40 out now, when do I know another money is going to hit? It doesn't make sense. So you start to pull
Some people
away.
started to get jobs, and because obviously, we're in a
Yeah,
very controlled socio-economic group. So these are ideas that perhaps foreign to some people. But some people had to start working and get involved in a bunch of other different things. And I think that it was quite profound because I am aware of what happened. I did see it happen, but obviously, things just are as they are.
yeah,
And obviously, being in tune with what's happening, you didn't really make a big deal out of it. You didn't obviously press. Obviously, I know some people within the stratosphere above our socio-economic group. It is what it is.
nothing was
Every day is a
happening.
holiday. That kind of a thing.
Abby, yeah,
You can obviously tell from them, but obviously the people that could then see that this is having a more profound impact on their lives. And I think even minus the economic impact. Now, me, I don't want to say one thing and the other, right? I don't want to tell you where I stand, but for me, my own memory of Buhari times, I remember NSAS.
yeah,
Good. All right, but whatever you thought happened or you didn't think that happened to the protesters, I remember NSAS, and I remember how graphic it was. And I remember because I tuned into DJ Twitch's live. I remember what
yeah,
was going on. So I really don't want to be more explicit than I already have. And I need to add some sort of trigger warning to this episode because of this sort of
yeah.
conversation. But I think that these are the sort of things that you think about during his regime. NSAS, you remember the cashless policy and
Even the Twitter ban, that was
the
so
Twitter
crazy because I'm
ban.
talking about Twitter.
A lot of things happened in that unfortunate 8-year period that you look back
And I
and you
think,
say, wow,
I did
Nigerians,
actually
we were
think,
trying.
he died at 82. I think that's what they recorded.
They recorded it.
But
I'm glad you said it like that. That's what was recorded. We
But he
don't
came across
know.
as much older than that in the sense that he had a very, like, I don't know, old way in terms of his approach to government.
He
And
shied
that's
away
something
from
that,
public speaking and addressing the people. So we often felt as though there was a conversation of there being some sort of alleged cabal that had strangulated the
Even
country in that period. I don't know how
I
true
love
that
the
was,
whole gist
but
about
that was the
his
discourse.
doppelganger. His
Yes,
doppelganger was a
and there's the
fantastic
whole
piece of
thing. I think,
work.
like I said, and even Rufai was saying that it's a very, very unintelligent conversation. But for the sake of completeness, we will bring it up. There was the conversation of Buhari passing away and some guy
Yeah.
named fucking Jibril from I don't know what they say, Niger or something, coming to come and take over so they can finish. So
Yeah.
there was just a whole, like I said, so many depraved things happened in that 8 years.
I think there was a
Twitter
lot.
ban, NSAS, the COVID, mishap. I remember Femi Fanana saying that, oh, how can you hoard Indomie?
Yeah, me was crazy. But I want to
You
talk about
know,
three things.
it is
There are three things under
intolerable, as he
Buhari's
said.
regime
Right.
that I think was really crazy. Number one, I think his age really showed because he led government in a very grandfatherly way, and you're trying to lead a population that is majorly
Young
youthful.
people. Yeah.
I don't know how you want to do that and you want to go about that approach because one thing that definitely polarized or pushed away the youth was the social media ban that he did on Twitter. That's crazy. I think that was definitely a wrong mistake. The second thing about it is I also want to talk about how he lost principles. And it goes for us to argue, did he really have those principles in the first place? For example, I am of the opinion that he won in 2015 because he led the campaign against anti-corruption. And Jonathan's government was riddled with some of the largest figures of theft that we've seen in our lives.
But Kitty, but I can't lie. Those Jonathan years, everybody was eating fat. The money was trickling down. Like as much as the people they were criminals, but the money was trickling down. There was money in the country.
Like mad.
People were eating like people were not thinking about feeding. Feeding wasn't really a thing. People were eating. Right. It's only confusion of now that people are now like I've never heard about so many like every other day bag of rice cost. What the fuck?
Sharing rice. And they were sharing rice like it was nothing. Back
like
then,
there was like feeding wasn't the topical conversation.
Christmas hampers used to go crazy.
The hampers used to be so big. They used to be so big.
See like Cocoa Pops, Rice Krispies, all these rishi inside that you just don't see anymore. Now I was so disappointed.
Food was never topical under Jonathan, but when Buhari came in, the rhetoric and the conversation changed. Right.
I wouldn't say it changed in his first term. I would say it was the
second time when all the bad things happened. It wasn't the first time. The second time was
the first time was
with
still
the
okay.
Because the second time was when they had the cashless thing, NSAS, the Twitter ban. It was like the first time I don't even know what was
particularly crazy because I've never felt so close to Weimar Germany than I did under Buhari's regime. Because why was I carrying 200-300K in my bag and I had to be putting it under my mattress when I went out of my room because I didn't want to come and find my cash.
I didn't even, I just followed them and I said, you know what? It's fine. I don't give a damn. I can't have cash. But the problem with not having cash in Lagos is there are some certain places where you need cash. Example, Kiiti, you go out, I go out. The people that secure your equipment when you go out, like no offense, but when you need to, okay, now weekend we day. Like like that is what you need the cash for.
Although it was rubbish, I still look at it in a positive sense because it gave rise to fintechs like OP and Money Points to really jump. I'm so sorry, I love a transfer. I transfer 500 naira. If GT was not crazy, without their very foolish 50 naira, 10 naira that they like to throw around the place. Honestly, I transfer every little small bit of money.
See, I say this thing
just
all
when
the
you
time.
have bad network, because it actually showed that some of these banks were very crappy. Because it was around that same cashless time that everybody's bank was doing rubbish. They were talking about no service. They were talking about decline.
There was a greater pressure on the system because, see, when you have multiple ways in which payments can be done, the strain on a particular means isn't often felt. Because there was no cash, everybody was transferring every time at all times. That's why the system kept collapsing. And I say this all the time. I love GTB Bank, but they're not a bank. They're into events and parties. They should focus on being an events management company and leave banking.
And I have a good time. I always have a good time at that.
GT Food Fest, Fashion Week. They should stick to that. They are not a good bank. You see, But yes, but they're not a commercial bank. They often fail, and they fail in such a grand manner. I don't even want to
But
get into
what's not the
Zenith Bank.
best commercial
I
bank?
don't even want to get
Because
into Zenith Bank. I don't want to get into Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank is the dawn of every year
I don't
record
have anything to
profits.
say about Zenith Bank. I love them as Zenith Bank. Jimovia, my king, and I
The
love myself, Adora, you know.
Kiiti has
Sorry.
vested interest there. So me, I don't have. I will say Zenith Bank, they are not a serious bank. Citi Bank are not serious. So in
Fidelity
that
Bank, I
period,
have to rep. Zenith Bank,
see,
I have to rep.
Kiiti, those
Sorry.
people held my money ransom. How can I have money, but I've been made a leper? That I cannot use my money.
Oh my days.
The poverty has been thrusted upon me because I have the purchasing power, but I cannot access it.
But
Why?
I have such a good time at GT. I have such a good time because I don't know. One thing about it, their app is fantastic. It's just so easy to use.
I don't, like I said, it's fine. Kitty is very, very, very biased, and these are the
Okay.
issues of this podcast. But anyway, let's get a little bit more topical. I said that what is your sort of your takeaway of his legacy? Like, was it like I really do want us to shed some positives because I don't want to
Yeah.
be like, oh my gosh, like we're piling on, right? When that's not really the case. But
Oh,
I just do feel like it's important that we stress that overall, his democratic tenure was a massive fucking failure.
I
And
think
that's just how I want to put it. And those are my words, not yours. But there were some good things here and there. Sure.
like
And
what?
I
Name three.
think you said that that Uber driver you met,
Okay, that's because I was going to say that
agriculture.
other than that, okay,
Sure.
for example, some of the CBN policies too,
Yeah, there
before
were things.
Emefiele started fapping, some of them were not that bad. For example, I really thought that the Bureau de Change
The
initiative,
BDC.
I thought that was good.
Wait,
I thought it worked.
as in how as part it's good we have so many, or it's good that they regulated them and reduced them. Which part is good?
No. Well, I mean, it depends on how you argue with Chap, but I thought maybe they have been able to access, like, what do I even call them? This is like there were a lot. I had options.
Do you know
Now I
why
don't have
that's a
options.
bad
I feel
thing?
like it's a
See, one man,
cartel
see, I see,
now.
and
I
that's
don't
the issue.
know.
Like I said, see, people are saying these things, but this what you said is people are using BDC for fraud. You go and collect your allocation from CBN, you now go and sell it on the black market, and you are making that markup
Yeah.
because the government rate at the time was what 800, 700 or something. You
But at
now
the
go and
same
sell it
time,
for
you can't say that the
1,000
government
or
was even
something like that.
after it.
Sorry.
You can't say that the government then were even after it because they were chasing Aboki, saying that Aboki FX is the one that is causing it to be going up.
That
Meanwhile, they
thing
should have
was
been
smoke
chasing.
screen. They were trying
That
to
was so
deceive people.
irritating.
See,
It was
one
so
man can own
irritating.
10 BDCs, and every
Yeah.
week you collect $10,000 from CBN and go and sell to the black market and be making a markup. BDCs don't have money. The people that have money, they are bookies. BDCs, again, I'm not trying to use that term as a bookie as disparaging onto the people, but that's sort of how we describe the
The
money
people that
trend,
trade.
the money
Yeah.
trade does from a certain extraction of the country. It's important I highlight that, right?
That grammar is serious.
Yeah, do you get it is very, very key that I coined like that, but I'm not saying that they're one or the other. I'm just saying that one person can have 15
Yeah.
BDCs. I know somebody, me as I am now. I know somebody that at that time had 8 BDCs. BDC office was like because BDC office was not even an office. They just had some kind of place they put their address, BDC.
You didn't even
They
need
go
to,
and
you
collect
didn't
their
even need
allocation
to.
and go and sell.
You could
That's
just be a
the
house.
BDC money. That's the BDC
Yeah.
money they're doing.
But I mean, just looking in hindsight, I'm only able to talk about my experience. And I'm just thinking back to when they tried to streamline access to foreign currency. And I know how hard it was then to find options because nearly everyone had lost their license. And in my own opinion, I think that even put some further strain on the Nigerian naira for a
I
while.
was so happy they lost their licenses. That was crime. They were that BDC and subsidy were the easy money crimes in the country.
Subsidy was definitely crazy, but I was enjoying that 185. When
And
that
then
petrol
also
went up,
another good thing that Buhari did, funny enough, Buhari removed the subsidy. Everybody likes to attribute Tinubu for the subsidy removal, but it was
yeah, but
actually
it wasn't in the
Buhari because
budget
they removed it.
after.
It wasn't budgeted for the year.
Yeah.
So for that 6 months that Tinubu had to ride out, it wasn't in the
Yeah.
budget. Whether or not he announced it or not, there was no provision for the subsidy to be paid.
Yeah.
It just wasn't there, right? But again, and it's unfortunate, it's fortunate. I don't know how you want to look at it, but I wish Buhari had removed it earlier because it was a
Okay,
fraud.
so
The system was a
what are the
fraud.
good things that we're talking about now? We only mentioned how one man strikes another man strikes. So some people found the Buhari regime to be very, very
The good thing is he
profitable and
removed the
enriching.
subsidy and he
Okay,
regulated
that's
the
true.
BDCs. Those are the good things. There are less
Did he regulate
BDCs
the
now.
BDC? So wasn't that Tinubu and
I think it's the two of them.
I
Let's
don't
give
think it's the two of
Buhari
them.
something,
Buhari,
please.
Buhari didn't come across as somebody that had that. Is it Emefiele? Emefiele did not have that in his mind. Have you not seen the Emefiele didn't have that thought. That thought wasn't, it
Oh
didn't
my
cross, it
God.
didn't even appear yet to cross. He didn't have that in his mind.
It
He didn't have that.
didn't
I
come
think that's a
through.
Cardoso and Tinubu initiative.
Okay. Well,
But
don't
I'm
worry.
really thinking, what else was there under Buhari that
Like I said, this is for the purposes of being balanced, but I really don't give a damn. I think we should move on. R.I.P. Buhari,
yeah.
that's all I
I
have
think
to
another
say.
thing
I
that I
don't have
definitely
anything
don't
more.
agree with in the sense that you ruled for 8 years and you didn't build one hospital because, mind you, he was probably the president that flew out the most for health reasons.
He was ill. I don't remember the
And
time
you
that even
didn't have,
that Sosimajora had to enter because he was gone for a long
yeah,
time. And
you didn't have a single hospital in the federation, not even in Daura that you even be going to, that could treat you for your medical causes. You still had to
Italy.
go to London and then you still had to go and die in the same London.
But can I just add to that? They said that the reason is because of privacy. They said that they go abroad for privacy because in
But you can
Nigeria
get privacy in
they
Nigeria.
will leak the ailment. He said they will leak it. They go the doctor's
But
place.
then, to some extent, why is the head of state's president's situation? Because Trump people, maybe they came to come and tell us what was going on with his
Yes,
hands and
yeah.
his
Whether
feet
they
that
said
were
it's
swelling
deep
up.
vein
They told
thrombosis.
us
I don't know.
about
Yeah.
Catherine, Princess of Wales. They told us about what's that one's name now? King Charles. They told
Yes,
us
about
about
how they
him
are
as
going
well.
through a lot. Yes. I think it
Exactly.
was something like that, yeah.
So I know it took a while, but I think it's because of public sentiment around the time.
Sure,
It may be
sure.
because you know what I'm saying. But at the same time, at least they still told us Buhari. We don't even know what killed him. I don't think they've told us what he passed
Honestly,
from.
Kitty, I can't lie. At this stage, I'm so sorry by anybody I offend, but I don't give a damn about what took that man. Don't care. It is what it is. He's gone. He's gone.
I
May he
think
rest in peace and all that, But we press on. That's his legacy. His
from an
effect,
empathetic point of view,
brother.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to just play this tune,
Oh,
but
sure.
I still can just like I can empathize with members of the family who feel like
Yes,
they've
there was that
lost
video of the daughter
someone.
that cried outside the hospital. She was
I mean, in
screaming.
that very moment in time, she doesn't know her father to be
Yes, no, she knows
president
him
like
as
we know
a
him
father, nice
as her
guy,
father exactly. So
sends
I can
allowance,
get
all
it
these
from
things
that
here and there.
POV. But what I don't like is when people then come and try and reduce the experience of Nigerians under
Oh
Buhari's
no, they are
regime.
gaslighting you like mad now. It's
I don't like
gaslighting.
that at all. I
It's
think
fine, they're
people really
gaslighting now.
suffered. People really, really, really suffered in his last 4 years and even across the whole 8 years. One thing that was particularly nasty for me was the whole gist about Aisha Buhari grabbing that guy and having him caned
Locked up.
because, yeah, locked up and caned because he tweeted that she was fat like a pig and she was living in Dubai. Now, my question is that was she or was she not? It's not funny. It's not funny.
Was she or
Was she
was
or
she
was
not
she not?
fat or was she not living in Dubai? Which one are you asking me?
Exactly. Was she or was she not spending several days, months of the year in the
Okay,
UAE?
okay, so you're asking about the Dubai one, not the fat one. Okay.
No, that Dubai one, let's start there. Fat is subjective.
Hey, I don't know anything about that. Listen, we're an inclusive
Skinny is a
podcast.
state of
I don't
mind.
know who is I don't know who's fat, who's skinny. But like I said, there's always a misuse of power, and it's unfortunate. Like I said, I, I genuinely struggle to think about the positives that he did. You guys were back. Okay, so we want to discuss something that is very topical in society, right? Kitty and I agree this is quite a topical situation. One of my, really good friends sent me a TikTok, right? And I listened to the TikTok and we'll attach the TikTok. I don't know, for me, can we play it or do we need to just put it on the show notes? So there's a clip that we'll play now.
The idea of someone taking care of you in a way that maybe you've never been taken care of before is very compelling. But when you give up the responsibility to take care of yourself, you also trade your agency.
Yes.
You don't get to abandon the responsibility to take care of yourself without giving up agency over what happens in your life.
Yeah.
I too want to be taken care of.
Who doesn't?
you know? But I think when that is your primary goal, like when you are really driven by that pursuit, I want folks to ask themselves, what's this really about? What experiences have I had in my life of not being taken care of that I'm trying to make up for?
Okay, so now you've heard the clip. So that's sort of the conversation, right? So let's just start off with some ground rules before we start. Because like I said, Kiiti and I, we've listened to the clip. We know what's going on. Fun times happen on that podcast. You know, why women having a conversation. Tables are always being shaken, right? That's neither here nor there. But so we'll just start off with the definition of agency, right? So for us on this podcast, right, we define agency as the right to self-determination. All people have the right to self-determination. And by virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development, interests, and affiliations. Are we happy with that? That is where the podcast stands on agency. That is for me. That's where the podcast stands now. So very, very interesting clip, right? So, and I'll sort of start with what the woman from the clip said. So she said that when you give up the responsibility to take care of yourself, you also trade your agency. You don't get to abandon the responsibility to take care of yourself without giving up agency over what happens in your life. When being taken care of is your primary goal, and you are really driven by that pursuit, right? So she wants people to ask themselves, what is this desire really about? What experiences have you had in your life, right, of not being taken care of that you're trying to make up for? And that is sort of the point to the conversation. So I sort of asked Kiiti that, hey, what do you think of this on like a broad level? And then we started to get into a bunch of different things. I think I'm just like Kiiti sort of chime in and start before we get to all the connecting issues. All right. So we'll try and keep the ideas as clear and as concise as possible. Right. But Kiiti, what are your initial thoughts broadly?
Okay, so let's quickly just check this out. First thing is, I love the fact that we defined agency. I think that narrows the scope as to exactly the perimeter of the context in which we're looking at this. And I also want to talk about what the leading factor is when we talk about this dynamic. And I think it narrows itself down to financial power. I think that's really a conversation that has become more prominent as I've grown with age. And you read about it online. But ever since I became eligible, I've now realized that it's actually far more topical and more important than it came across when I was younger. I think the lady made a very valid point, and it goes both ways because we can't just look at it from a woman's perspective in the sense that she's when we're talking about money. Because to some extent, I'm going to flip it to the men. Won't you say that a man gives up agency when he takes on a woman? Because she said taking care of yourself. And these men bring women into their homes to cook, clean, and iron their clothes, basically run their whole household. So is that not also giving up, you're losing that agency in the sense that you're not taking care of yourself, you've passed that responsibility onto someone else. So we cannot just look at it solely in terms of money, which is the leading factor, but also in terms of just like everyday upkeep, because a lot of men just can't take care of themselves. So I want us to look at the argument when we're continuing this conversation from those 2 points of views, the financial side of it, and also, I don't even know what to classify it, but the homely side of it, when we want to look at giving up agency. So what is your own opinion on that before I start to bite?
I mean, I think I'm with you, right? Because, and even when I had the conversation with my friend, I did not say man or woman, but we can use those qualifiers, right? Because from your sort of the way you're spinning it is that the care is going both ways, right? As the man is caring for a woman by providing financially, she's providing care for him by caring for the home, as you said, cooking, cleaning, ironing, and things of that nature, right? So I'm with you on that sort of premise, right? So I'll let you land before I start to punch holes in this whole conversation. So please land.
Okay.
Right? So, but I'm with you so far.
In the first point, this dynamic has been present time immemorial. So the gist of the male figure being the breadwinner and chasing the naira and the kobo, and the woman being the homely side to the relationship has been there. And you might, modern people might want to argue against it because of how capitalism has really bitten into our lives. But it works. And this is so hard for me to say because I'm not somebody who is interested in that kind of dynamic. But it does work to a large extent. For example, as a professional, when I got home, I got to the office this morning at 8:45. I got home at just like 7:20 something sharp. I just didn't take off my clothes. I took off my trouser and I just sat on my bed and I fell asleep there. So then I got up after and I started thinking, okay, what the hell am I going to eat now? So luckily I meal prep. So I make most of my food on the weekend and I just chuck into the fridge. Now that works for some people, that doesn't work for some people. So it would be great if I had someone to help me out from that sense. But at the same time, if I'm working the kind of job that I'm working, I'm making the type of money that I'm making, I can hire someone to do that. I don't need to reduce somebody who is able and able to work. I don't need to reduce their life and confine them into the kitchen, the washroom, the laundry room, or things like that, solely because I'm too cheap to hire help or I'm too lazy to do it myself. So that's where my disagreement comes in that I can't see why I need someone to do that. I can't see why anyone would agree to that because if we're both earners and we're both earners of income that is realistic, then we can pay people to support us in that sense. So I agree with the lady's point in the sense that when you give up agency or when you basically chase that kind of lifestyle, you definitely have to trade it off with your agency in the sense that there's a give and take to it. So if I'm in that relationship because I want to be provided for, then surely I don't particularly have a say as to what I do with my time because in effect, whoever is footing the bill is paying for my time. Do you see from that POV? Do you see what I'm saying?
I think okay, because I think that, like I said, we're dancing around the issues a lot. So let's just
Yeah.
sort of grab the bull by the horns in as a PC way as possible, right? If because like I said, we're saying men and women and also things. So I still want to keep it quite broad because you haven't exactly touched on what exactly are you giving up, right? Because we cannot agree that everybody wants to be taken care of. Everybody wants a certain level of care and
Yeah.
understanding and sort of a soft landing, as Nigerians put it, whenever they're in a level of relationship with someone, right? And, societally, it seems as though that men have often been the ones to give women a softer landing in relationships. Obviously, as things have developed and women have been able to work and attain, greater levels of income and, financial power and just a greater societal standings, that has sort of changed. A lot of people are dating women that's up and doing and making money and doing all
Yeah.
these sort of things, right? Like one of my things, whenever I'm going for a babe, I love a babe that is doing things. Like you have to be busy, you have to be making money, be making things happen, right? I told one babe, well, no, actually, no, let me not coin it like that. But I think that one of my core sort of ideologies and mindsets is that if in a situation that I take on a partner and I am providing for my partner and I am covering expenses for my partner in the confines of a marital agreement, right? I would expect that the money that my partner isn't spending to be saved and, kept for rainy days, whatever things that they may need to be done with later on in life. That's sort of my thing that I believe that, like I said, if you expect or want me to care for you financially and to give you that level of windfall, right?
Yeah.
The money that's not being spent, you keep it somewhere and hopefully we can then use it to do other things. That's neither here nor there. But that's a separate conversation of my own personal sort of belief system on the matter, right? So I do believe, rather, not I do, I understand because again, we have a very nice case study, our parents, right? That's sort of millennial generation or even the ones before. I think they were Gen X or whatever those guys were called, but they are the perfect case study. Women largely didn't work. Obviously, there were some that did. Like I know, like you said, I know your mom works and does a shit ton of things, but a lot of people, have different situations. But more often than not, the woman did not work, and the men went out into the world to make things happen and this and that. And
Yeah.
as a consequence of that, and patriarchy as a whole, the women more often than not had to give up a lot of autonomy, control, and agency over the trajectory of their lives. What does that look like? Where do we live? The man kind of sets it up. What kind of schools are we sending our children to? The man chooses, right?
I'd argue
Something, sure.
on that still. Okay, but continue.
Yeah, that's what we can always come. I'm just saying, like I said, so these are sort of the conversations in terms of agency that our mothers and grandmothers had to give up to be able to attain that level of care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they gave up a certain control over some of the direction their lives were going into, right? The men could dictate where they were going, where they were not going to, things they did, things they were allowed to, things they were not allowed to do, whether for good or for bad. That's not the point I'm trying to. The point I'm trying to make is that this is the case study that we have. So because of that case study, a lot of people thought, gone, this doesn't make sense. My mom is unhappy. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people say, oh, my mom doesn't like this situation, she was unhappy. So, okay, in my life, I'm going to make a change, as a lot of women in our generation, our ages are not too far apart, even though you were trolling over my age earlier, our ages are not too far apart, right? So women in our generation say, oh my gosh, I don't want to go through this bullshit. I want to have more agency and control over my life. I want to work. I want to make my own money. I want to make things happen. Fine. But where I lose sort of track of the whole thing is if you say, oh, I was meant to take care of me, but I don't want him to tell me what to do. And I want to still have the
Doesn't
right
work.
to self-determine. How do we then balance those two acts? Because what is the incentive for a man to take on a woman that he takes care of, but she is still exerting, asserting levels of control on every aspect of her life? And that's, like I said, like, what is the incentive for that sort of arrangement, right? Because
It just also goes
if
down to
let's let me land. If you pass on the burden of care to somebody, what is, and again, I hate this conversation because it then gets into all these, blue pill, red pill stuff of what the woman brings to the table and all those sort of dumb things that I don't want to get into. But that seems to be how we're tracking, right? Because it then goes into, okay, so if I provide this level of care, people then ask you, what do I get in return, right? And I can't reconcile this because I don't know what to tell these people. Hence why it is so topical, because a lot of conservative men, quote unquote, say, oh my gosh, I would do the care, but I need to have this level of respect and control and level of determination for the trajectory of our lives. A lot of women aren't necessarily happy to have that level of conversation because they do not trust the men of this sort of time with that level of control, because they, for good or for bad, haven't exhibited good decision-making skills in terms of how to run themselves, not to
our own
come.
personal lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is the premise of the conversation.
Okay, so just
So I'm asking
building
that,
off
where
that,
do you stand on this sort of weighing up scale?
I think I agree in the sense that it's difficult for you to want that kind of relationship. But let's just say we're just doing it the generic way again of talking about like how it applies to gender stereotypes. It's difficult for you to want that kind of relationship and not expect that the man is going to exert a certain length of control over your decisions. But again, I think it and your life trajectory as a whole. But I think it depends on what the intention and interest of the parties was or is again from the beginning of the relationship. Some men might want somebody present for the purpose of companionship or presence, just solely because of that. And if they are, to some extent, I don't like how it sounds because technically they are paying for that presence, if that makes sense. Which is the argument that a lot of women that I've come across and I've read online lead, especially when it comes to like going out. The gist that if you invite me out and I come out, then why should I pay? Because I'm spending my time.
Yes,
Do you get what I'm saying?
the conversation and the way it goes on social media is that when they ask women, what do you bring to the table? The retort is, oh, I am the table, right? So then it then
Yeah,
speaks to what you're saying, that their presence and their embodiments as people should be enough to cover this whole conversation and discourse in terms of what people are asking or demanding for.
yeah. But I think it's also very limiting to women at the same time because in a lot of ways, you've confined yourself to being an object or something that is attractive, and you also don't see the man of anything of attraction other than the depth of his pockets. Because that's solely how the conversation tends to operate, especially on social media, which some of them are not particularly intellectual. And I hate the fact that that's what it is, but you see some arguments that are not packaged well, like chain of thought,
It comes
and it
across
becomes
as
a lot.
very, very like single-minded and not fully
Yeah,
fledged out, because
but I think it's something that is popular in the West. I'm not too sure if that same rhetoric is popular in Nigeria,
how
especially in
so?
the Nigerian context, because I'm yet to meet a woman, Nigerian woman, not anyone that is particularly exposed to Western cultures and values that has this mindset of, I don't know how to explain it. this thing that we're talking about, that, oh, they spend on me, but I can still go to where I want to, and is a very young thing that you come across women less than 30 or like 35 down to like 25. You don't really see that in older women. At the same time, I don't really think you see it in African women traditionally. One, because the patriarchal setup is still
ingrained in
is
our
still
culture.
there.
It's still
Yeah.
very much part of our culture. And again, like I said, and we're not even saying this is for good or for bad. We're just sort of giving the analysis of what is the situation, right? And I think that, like I said, a lot of this is sometimes even a bit problematic because, like I said, mothers and parents' generation is a very good case, and there are times when this thing works and it's a good man, takes care of the wife, doesn't take advantage, but more often than not, the situation often goes left, and the man is, sleeping around and he's mistreating her, and then he then uses his resources to then control her and assert a certain level of dominance over her life, because should he want her to do something that she doesn't want to do, he then starts
Yeah.
to take away some of the benefits that
Yeah.
he's been affording to her over
A
the period of time.
fantastic thing to read
Right.
is actually the concept of coercive control. And that's basically like invisible domestic abuse to an extent. So not every abuse is physical, in the sense that, one, a lot of these women have their cards linked to the man's account. You're spending the man's money. So if he
You're
stops you
spending
from
his money,
spending,
the cars are in his name, the house is in his
property is
name,
in his name. So he can
everything
literally
he
wake up
has.
tomorrow
Yeah.
and leave you scot empty, which is why a lot of women are trying to find recourse in court. But I mean, some of these men now are getting smarter in the sense of things like prenups, or in the sense of things like moving property around. Like a lot of them, one that was fantastic is how you can, from a legal perspective, is making use of companies. So I know a fantastic case was how the man in question didn't actually own any property. All the property that was owned
But by
were
the companies.
exactly. So he was like, okay, you want something from me? This is all I have. Everything else that we've been living off on
This is for
is
the
not
company.
owned
I
by
don't own
me.
it. Yeah.
It's owned by the company. So how exactly then? And so some of these women are not particularly so clued on to that escape. So I honestly, I think it's a very sticky situation, and I think we have to get more realistic with ourselves. Every relationship is different, and what works for you might not work for the next person. But I'm generally not of the opinion that that gist of I want to be taken care of and I'm not going to give anything in return. I don't think that works at all. I think it only works for a short period of time while everyone is still young and having fun, while he still has some loose change that he's not particularly worried about. But once the financial crunch comes in, or he has other things he'd rather spend his money on, you're going to be the first one that he cuts out.
I mean, I think one of the things I like that you highlighted earlier was that we can both agree on this, that it is a quite new and young problem.
Yeah, yeah,
In I said, in an adult, so unfortunate I'm an adult in adult relationships, right? As an adult, these aren't really things, because if you're dating a woman, not a girl, not hot girl, all these things that they love. Not, no, I'm so sorry, I don't push with that one. But if you're dating a woman, right, and you guys in a relationship and you are making some contributions that are financial in nature, and with time they start to accrue, the women that I have experience with find a way to almost equalize the playing field, because, and it's not, I don't know, because I don't want to say it doesn't come from a group of the, but I think that in their mind they just want to make things, they want to create a greater level of parity, because it's one thing not to do anything if you don't have any money, right? You don't have any sort of, you don't have the resources. But another thing that you have the resources and you're watching this partner that you claim you like or you love, whatever word you want to use, going through all these sort of gymnastics. And don't forget that we're all aware of the realms of earnings, right? Anybody can go on Google and look for your job and have an idea of a rough idea of what
yeah,
you make, right? So unless this woman hates you, which I would hope that you're not seeing, and like I said, I'm trying to again stay away from this conversation of woman or man, but unless it's your partner hates you, they're going to want to do things and contribute in the relationship in a way that can also be giving a numerical value to show the level of contribution. It's
yeah,
not just on your birthday, for example, that a woman would want to do something nice for you, or your partner would want to do something nice for you. On the random day, they can get you food, take you out, do things here and there, or just sort of create an experience for you that is thoughtful and caring, right? So I do think that it is a very, very modern problem, but it seems to be creeping up a little bit more and more, right? And and it's just I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but it's it's complicated that we're using the terms we're using, because when you use terms like autonomy and control and finances, it starts to get more topical than it needs to be. I just think that when you're in a relationship, two people should want, and it has to be a want, because as women often say, if I have to ask you to do it, then you might as well not have done it at all. You should know and want to do it, right?
You know, I'm still in the market. I'm still trying to sell market. So I'm trying to package
Oh,
it. Please, if you're
sure,
looking for me, you
sure.
text me between 6:45 and
Okay.
10:30 p.m. So I'm just pasting that out there. Don't do Sunday.
Sure, I will add
But
Kitty's Instagram. You message him. He's a nice guy. He's just up and doing, you know. When you see him in Lagos, you will know it's him. He looks so sweet. He wears three-piece suits, you know.
yes, now, because you have to package, you know, everything in Lagos is packaging.
Sure, up and doing.
Packaging.
Sure. The guy, you guys can email us. Say, you know, if you want to have access, email us. I'll pass your CV along to Kitty. You can add your relationship resume, you know, your age,
I also
genotype,
do
number of
I also do
siblings.
connections. So if you're looking for a life partner, you message me, you give me what you're interested in. I will look through my very long contact list and I will look for who I
He also
think
does
will.
Cupid, is what he's saying. He moonlights as Cupid sometimes, you
Yeah,
know,
so
can
but
help you with
my
somebody.
fee obviously is not free. Nothing in Lagos is free. So I
No, don't
charge
worry.
10%.
Of what?
So 10% of total wedding cost. I think that's okay. I think that's very fair. So,
And you know what? I
you
understand on
know,
a level,
Harbour
because at
Point
least that's when you
Wedding,
know
I
that
love.
this thing worked out for sure. So you pay when it has finished working out.
Exactly.
So fine. But 10% of the cut of the white of the traditional, which one?
No, total wedding cost. So you add
You are
the
a
engagement
thief. This is
introduction,
the sign of
white
thieves.
wedding,
You too, Fumbi, are saying complete.
honeymoon, no,
These are the signs of thieves. No
it's
problem. It's
together.
okay. We'll discuss.
Because I've given you a match made in heaven. So why won't you
Sure.
remunerate me?
God is
You
wonderful.
know?
Okay, anyways, on that note, you guys,
Exactly.
thank you so much. I hope this is not too long. I'm so sorry, editing team.
You'll
This is
manage it.
how you do it. I don't know. We've done a lot, but it's okay. You guys, thank you so much for listening to us. Please like, share, subscribe, you know, send it to your friends. You're having a good time. Thank you so much, Kitty, for coming to join us and have a great chat. You know, very insightful guy, up
Thank you
and
so
doing.
much,
You guys should follow us, follow Kitty, you know, shout him out, you know, with his wedding and Val services. You guys, if you need discount code, hit me up. I'll send you discount code for Kitty. Don't worry, we'll give you like 10% off.
Yes, so
It'll be okay. Yeah. So
Code
thank you
Square
guys so much.
Podcast for 5% off.
You guys, that's really the discount. He said 5. Don't worry. If you come through and get an extra 5, make it 10. Don't worry. It's fine. We'll discuss in the back
Exactly.
end. But thank you so much, Kitty.